Welcome to Pilates Teacher's Manual, your guide to becoming a great Pilates teacher. I'm Olivia, and I'll be your host. Join the conversation and the Pilates community on Instagram at Pilates Teacher's Manual, and visit buymeacoffee.com/Olivia Podcasts to support the show. Today's chapter starts now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am absolutely thrilled today to be here with Micki Havard. She is the superstar behind Micki Fit. And if you don't follow her on Instagram, you should as a teacher, because she has such amazing, inspiring flows and ways of looking at exercises and cool props. She's got amazing stuff happening there and also amazing stuff happening on her membership site. She's got a book coming out that she's going to share with us as well. She's in Atlanta, which I'm assuming is Hotlanta right now because it's hot Chicago.
It's been kind of a weird mix of rain and heat, but it's always hot, yes. The humidity is what really blows us out of the water. No pun intended.
So thank you so much for being on, Micki. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Olivia. I really appreciate you. I've been listening to your podcast for a while, and I'm honored to even be a part of it. So thank you so much.
Yes. So the first thing I always like to ask everyone who comes on the show is, how did you find Pilates when you found it?
So I found Pilates through DVDs. So I know I just aged myself just a tad, but I was living with my parents for a transition time where I had just finished school and then moved back with my parents for a few months. And my mom had all these, well, not DVDs, I'm sorry, VCR tapes. Let me take it back. Yeah. VCR tapes in the basement where she was, doing all her Jane Fonda workouts. And she had just ordered these Mari Windsor Pilates workout. It was like a 3-pack. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Like, what is she doing here? So I pushed out, her ankle weights out of the way and moved over her little mat. And I started doing these Mari Windsor Pilates workouts and absolutely fell in love with the practice. And that was over 20 years ago. I mean, I was in my, maybe mid 20s at that point. And so definitely over 20 years ago. And I just fell in love with it. I loved the flow. I loved the connection between my mind and my body. And I mean, I was like 25, so I had no idea that was the best body I was ever going to have. But I really liked the way that the results, because I had been a track runner most of my life and short bursting distances. So I had a little bulkiness in my legs. I just really liked the way Pilates didn't add to that, because that was what I was trying to get away from. And so that's how I found it. I found it in my mom and dad's basement on some VCR tapes.
So how did you go from basement Pilates practitioner to becoming a teacher? How did that transition happen?
So I continued to practice mostly on, the VCR tapes with Mari Windsor and Denise Austin. And there were a couple other, I guess not DVDs, VCRs that I bought. I keep on wanting to say DVDs, VCR tapes that I bought to continue the practice, and really looked for a studio that taught Pilates. At that point, I was living just outside Atlanta in a city called Decatur, which is just about 20 minutes outside of Atlanta. And in the 90s, there were no Pilates studios that I knew of. And so I went to the Y, and there was a lady that was teaching Pilates. So I took her class and really fell in love with the practice. Fast forward, I was a buyer for a retail shop, and a lot of the girls in the retail business were doing Pilates. And this was in a different area of town called Buckhead in Atlanta, a little more advanced as far as, fitness trends. And so I found a studio in Buckhead and started to practice, and really got a deep connection with the teacher that was teaching. And she suggested that I get certified. She's like, you're really good. You should get certified. You have, a natural, a natural form, if you will. And so I started thinking about it, and we'll see, and kind of put it on the back burner for a few years. Then I really decided to do something outside of being a retail buyer, which was pretty all consuming. I was traveling a lot and, to New York and Miami and Vegas for these retail buying shows. I just wanted something that wasn't that. So I looked into certification and got my certification probably in that last year of me working at the boutique. I then got engaged and got engaged to my now husband. And I really used Pilates as a way to get my body ready for my wedding. Again, in my mid-20s, had no idea how fantastic my body was then and thought I needed to slim down. So, took Pilates in order to, to fit into my wedding dress and to, be long and lean. And that was really what made me fall in love more because I was really consistent in my practice.
You've been teaching for more than a decade, for almost 20 years. Yeah. So how have you seen your teaching change over the course of, getting wedding dress ready to now, especially looking at your book, Pilates for everyone, and looking at, different body types and different ages? Share a little bit about that if you can.
Sure. So when I started teaching, and the teacher that I connected with in Buckhead, she was a teacher trainer as well. So I took the course through her at her Pilates studio. And she left the studio to pursue some different things and sold it to a different teacher. And her style was totally different from my teacher trainer. I really didn't click with her. And a lot of different clientele came in. It became really a homogenous group of women. And I just didn't connect with that. So I really started to seek other Pilates studios that weren't so homogenous. I mean, everyone was at this studio, was thin, a stay-at-home mom, was blonde. And I was like, this can't be what Pilates is all about, because I had learned from a teacher that had welcomed so many different other students. So at that point, I started to look for another studio to teach. I bounced around to a couple of studios, just didn't get a connection. And so I started to teach at the Y. I went back to the Y where I had begun my practice. That taught me so much, because when you teach at a facility where people are coming in who have never heard of Pilates, don't know how to do Pilates, and, really are on a big difference as far as the learning curve of Pilates and fitness levels. So I had everyone from, 17-year-old students that were athletes, they were coming in from the local high school, to 80-year-old women, to people that were, had just had knee replacements and their physical therapist told them to do Pilates. So I really was forced to learn how to teach a variety of students, not only to teach a variety of students, but also to teach in a different way. Because I was taught, just like most classic Pilates instructors are taught, to teach by verbal cues, exclusively verbal cues. That's how I was taught to teach. And, you didn't have to even touch the floor. You didn't have to be on the mat. I could go in there in heels and a skirt, if I wanted to, and teach Pilates the way that I was taught to teach. And so I really got down into, on the mat, like literally on the mat. And I really found a better connection, not only because I was teaching modifications, but because I was literally on their eye level. There's something about teaching and standing over someone that changes the dynamic, So when I began to be on the mat and added tons of visual cues with my verbal cues, added tons of tactical cues with my verbal cues, I really learned how to be a different teacher, a better teacher, and I really learned a lot from each of my students.
I think that that's so valuable, because one of the biggest shortcomings I see in teacher training is the fact that you're, for the most part, teaching other teachers. You're teaching people who already know Pilates, who know how to move, who are in touch with their body, who, if you mix up right and left, they'll autocorrect for you, or they'll know what you meant and they'll do, saw anyway. But when you're working with people, like you said, who, variety of abilities, variety of ages, experience, possibly zero experience exercising, let alone something as complicated and complex as Pilates, I can only imagine that your first few classes were...
They were mentally taxing.
Yes, because you're like, how do I do this? Because especially when you have, a very specific toolkit and then you show up and you're like, oh, these tools do not assist this.
Yeah, I mean, I really did feel a tad ill prepared to teach that variety of fitness levels. If it wasn't for the teacher that I had before, that was my teacher trainer, if it wasn't for her having a variety of students in her studio, I really would have been, out of it. But I always say I learned so much from those students. And like you said, I was coming home and I was doing homework. I was, scrambling to really think outside of my, Joseph Pilates box and come up with modifications and come up with variety. I mean, I wanted to challenge those students that were used to doing Pilates, but I also wanted to welcome the students who, were a little bit intimidated by just the name of the class, Pilates. So it was definitely something that it really made me stretch as a teacher and made me stretch as a person. I mean, so I always thank those students. And every, any interview or any type of time talking about my Pilates career, they really did make me a better teacher.
One of the things that I love on your Instagram is that you not only share amazing, incredible exercises and you are so strong. I look at you doing things sometimes and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would be falling on my face right now, like on the ball or on the whatever. And what I love is that you give so many options. You say, we can do this in a higher intensity. There's a jump, we can take this jump out, make it low impact. And you just really, you can see that in the work that you do, even in social media, which can be, very curated, you're still showing this very big variety in the way that, what this person's lunge looks like, what this person, like you could lunge any of these lunges and you're still doing the work.
Yeah, I just think that inviting people by offering a variety is what a teacher's supposed to do. No matter if you're teaching Pilates or if you're teaching Spanish. I mean, you have to be ready to welcome a variety of levels. And if you're not, then it's a disservice to you as a teacher. And I think it's hard to call yourself a teacher if you are not willing to teach different levels. I mean, that's the whole purpose of being a teacher. You want people to learn. You don't just want, the A student to learn. You want everyone to be able to learn. So that's just one of those things. I aim to really open up Pilates to a very large group of people. That's my whole aim.
Can you tell me a little bit about your Instagram journey and how you really have the poppinest social media like in the wild, and just like how is it like for you, because you just stunning things constantly? Like, what is your schedule? How do you even handle that? I'm just like on Instagram once a week and I'm like, wow, this is a lot.
I don't remember how long ago that I started posting, maybe 5 or 7 years ago. I really can't remember. I'm really bad at like time. But when I did start posting, my first post was a picture of like a training manual that I was leading a Pilates training, and I took a picture of my training manual. And I don't even know if I even put words there because I didn't really know what the deal was, right? And then I started posting stuff. It wasn't Pilates stuff. It was fitness stuff, because my Instagram name has always been Micki Fit. So it was fitness stuff, everything from, a workout or a picture of my, sneakers or whatever. And I was just doing it for fun. And it was a personal page. It was private. It wasn't even a business page. Then when I started working at the Y and social media became a little more popular, people started asking me, could you throw a couple of those workouts on, I missed a class. So that's when I really started throwing a few more Pilates workouts onto my Instagram page, per request of my students. And, now, however many years later, I'm still posting, still curating and, still having fun with it, because I told myself that if I wasn't having fun doing it, I was going to stop. And so, yeah, I've changed the way I post, but I definitely still enjoy posting. I hope I answered your question.
No, I mean, it's phenomenal. Again, if you check her out on Instagram, you have like 128,000 followers, and like, you can see why. First of all, you're like the coolest person ever. You're so kind. And just like, I really do look at your page for inspiration, because we have, especially as teachers, I've got, an exercise ball behind me. I've got, these weights, and I've got this resistance band, and we have all these things that like we have, but we tend to like get into a little bit of a rut of, well, okay, I'm all right. I'm going to put this looped resistance band around my knees. I'm going to do some clams. And like, that's what I do with my looped resistance band, but you just have like endless creativity. It's so fun to see.
I appreciate that. It's funny because a lot of people ask me like, how do you come up with the different workouts? It's really with music. So if I'm playing something and I'll just pick a playlist, I'll play something, and that is what normally will inspire me for a move. I mean, it may sound weird because I know there's not, music in classical Pilates at all, just you and your voice, but that's what really, inspires me a lot of times. And believe it or not, sometimes I'm thinking of moves like when I'm not even doing Pilates. I could be, watching something, and I was like, you know what, I can integrate that into, a loop band, or I can use a stability ball to do that. So just a weird mind.
I feel like it's very movement teacher, where like you'll see someone do something or you'll do something and be like, oh, we could definitely throw some rotation in there with that, And so
absolutely. Yes.
Constantly inspired. I love it.
Thank you.
Can you tell me, as someone with all of this amazing teaching experience, like what advice do you have for teachers, either teachers who are just getting started in their adventure, or even teachers like you who've been teaching for a hot second?
So as for new teachers, I always say, find your student tribe, because that is so important. I think. I really think that students make you as a teacher. And when we were saying before, Olivia, that, the way we're taught by other teachers. And so it really doesn't lend to you growing as a teacher. So I think you should really find what connects with you. It may not be what it was with me. It may not be a variety of fitness levels. Maybe you want to teach, a niche, of students, but that's so important to me, to really find a studio and or gym or wherever you're teaching that you really do enjoy the students. Because just like any other job, I consider my students like my fellow employees. So that really is what makes my day. When I would go teach, that was what made me happy, being around, my students, not this other instructors, but more so the students, because that's who you really are going to develop, these deep relationships with. Pilates is very intimate. You're talking about your pelvic floor, you're, lift your glutes, there's a lot of, tactical cues. So it can be a very intimate practice. So I really think you have to be really in touch with the students and find students that you really do enjoy.
Any advice for experienced teachers who have been around the block a few times and are still kicking?
I say to keep your mind open, really keep an open mind. I remember when I first started posting on Instagram, when I first started posting Pilates, I got a lot of criticism. Tons. I found out later there was a whole campaign to get me off of Instagram. I'm not kidding. Yeah, it's really weird. But anyway, DMs, emails from classically trained teachers who were basically questioning my form, my training, the fact that I was, veering off of some of the classical moves. It was weird. And I still have some of those emails and I keep them. And I will never say who it was, but I still keep them just to remind me. And I just really I was really motivated by the messages, actually, to continue to think outside the box. And I do think that people forget that Joseph Pilates is a guy. He's not a god. He was a man who created a movement, a practice. Jack LaLanne, a dude who created movement and people followed. And we're all people, we're all teachers, and we can create moves that help us as a teacher or help our students. So I say to teachers who have been teaching for a while to keep an open mind and, think outside the box and be sure that you are adjusting your classes for not only your students, but for you. As I age and my body is different, there are things that I can't do as an instructor. So I want to not take for granted that students can. So that's my advice. So definitely think outside the box and be open to some kind of change.
Well, I'm very sorry that you had to deal with such criticism and such negativity, because I think everyone, as you're saying, is able to contribute a very different perspective and a very unique way of looking at an exercise. Because if your body doesn't do that thing, but you still want the benefits of a movement like that, we know this in all the Pilates exercises, it's the same shapes. You're just on your side, on your back, on your front.
Absolutely.
You're standing, you're sitting, you're kneeling. And so why not take something like, I'm looking at my clients, I've got people in their 70s and their 80s, like, we're not doing the rollover. We don't need to do the rollover. No one needs to do the rollover, really.
Right.
So, but what do I want you to find in that rollover? Is it about finding length in your spine? Okay, well, we can do that in other places. We can do that, not with your legs over your head,
Right.
So, and I think that we gain a lot by, like you said, opening your mind and kind of exploring. Like, I've been taking Maria Earle's workshop series, and one thing I love about her as a teacher, and you as well, is that we take an exercise that you've done 1,000 times and, okay, what if we changed the tempo? What if we added this prop? What if we took what we accept as law in Pilates and didn't accept it as law? What if you let your hip lift in single leg circle? Would the world end? No, it wouldn't. It would be a different experience. That's all. So I think that that's incredible. And I'm glad that you were motivated by that. And because the Pilates community definitely benefits from variety and adventures there.
Thank you.
Hi there. I hope you're enjoying today's chapter so far. There's great stuff coming up after the break too. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening and visit buymeacoffee.com/Olivia Podcasts to support the show. There you can make a one-time donation or become a member for as little as $5 a month. Membership comes with some awesome perks, including a shout out in the next episode, a monthly newsletter, a monthly Zoom call with me, and more. You can also visit links.oliviabioni.com/affiliates to check out some sweet deals on products I use and love. Now back to the show. This is probably the most important thing, and I saved it for last because I wanted to build some anticipation, and that is your book is coming out, and it looks amazing.
Thank you.
And you posted about it, and you said, very similar to what you just said, that, Joseph Pilates was a man. He created an exercise system. Why shouldn't I have the audacity to contribute to this kind of thing? So can you tell me a little bit about your book, how it came to be, and why it should be included in all teacher trainings?
Oh, I love that. So I was approached in like September or October of last year via email by an editor from Penguin Random House, DK Books. And I was like, is this real? Like this, who wants me to write a Pilates book? And so I did this like deep dive, vetted this guy, went, LinkedIn, like did all this research on this guy just to, are you a real person? Am I being punked? Right. You get inundated with a lot of requests, at a certain point in social media. So, I figured out he was legit. I actually talked to the publisher that he was working with just to, vet him just a little bit more. And so once I figured that was all good, then I started to consider it. So I talked to my sister about it, and I was like, what do you think? She's like, what do I think? You have to do this. This is crazy. So I was like, okay. And I was kind of in to steal Shonda Rhimes, a year of yes. I was saying yes to all legitimate things that were in line with my brand and that were in line with my future goals. And my future goal is to not always, teach Pilates. So I have what I call a beyond the mat plan. So okay, they all check, it's in line with my brand. It's in line with what my goals are. And it's something that I think will be a great, legacy product. to leave. So I said yes and started writing. And I always laugh about it because I type like 25 words a minute, like no joke, like it's ridiculous. So I was like, can I dictate this book? Is there a way that I can dictate this book? So luckily it was during the pandemic. And, my clients had been slashed, by probably more than half of my clients weren't, coming. No clients were coming in my studio, which is in my home. And only about 30 to 40% stayed with me, via Zoom. So I was really fortunate because I had the downtime, which I wouldn't have had before. So I just, created these deadlines for myself, and my editor also created these deadlines for me. And I just plugged away. And the manuscript of the book was finished by February. That was my last deadline. And then we did a photo shoot in Indiana, of all places, glamorous Indianapolis, I was like hoping I was going to LA or New York, but they're like, yeah, we're going to fly you into Indianapolis for a photo shoot for your book. I was like, okay, cool. So my sister, who's my biggest cheerleader, came with me and helped me, and she was my assistant. And I mean, it still felt surreal until I actually saw the layouts of the book with my words next to the photograph. So that's how it started. How it ends is it'll be, available July the 20th, but you can pre-order it. So yeah.
What I love in the snippets that you've shared of the book is that not every person in the pictures is a Pilates teacher who is small and flexible and super strong. You've got different ages, you've got different body types, you've got people, I think I saw in one of the pictures, you've got like amputees or people, with less limbs. So it really does. And her book you didn't share, but it's called Pilates for Everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Pilates for Everyone. I guess I should say that. The book is called Pilates for Everyone. And yes, thank you, Olivia. I'm really bad at self-promotion. And like you were saying, there is one instructor that's in the book. The rest of the models are everyday people, and everyone from a 70-year-old guy to an amputee to a Special Olympian who suffers from fetal alcohol syndrome at one point. So I was so pleased with the selection of the models, and I did have some input in the selection. And I did really want to have a true variety, because when we say Pilates for everyone or Pilates for everybody, I mean, what do we really mean? And I know that, there are limitations, for people. So even me saying Pilates for everyone, of course, there are going to be some things that, someone can't do. But I really did want to have, a more true sense of making modifications for so many different bodies, so many different fitness levels. And I hope that this book really does help someone believe that they're able to do Pilates.
Because the benefits are there. And I feel like I've had this conversation with other teachers as well, that if someone comes into a Pilates studio, like they've already jumped so many hurdles just to get in the door to your Pilates studio. And then if you're going to throw all of these absolutely wacky exercises, objectively, there's some weird things that we want our bodies to do in Pilates.
Absolutely. The crab, like that's ridiculous.
All of those. I'm just like, what are we actually doing in this moment right now? Or, when you're talking about this really homogenous studio as well, if everyone in your studio is tiny, under 30 and super bendy, like that can be really intimidating for someone who's older or heavier or any of those things. And so I love that your book is really opening that conversation. And from a teaching perspective, to see like, hey, like I need to up my game, because if I really want to say Pilates is for everyone, then you gotta walk the walk.
No, it's so true. I love that. Walk the walk. Absolutely. Like, what are you really doing to make your class accessible or more inclusive? Because I mean, Pilates has gotten a bad rap lately. We've taken some punches to the chin lately, as far as a lack of inclusion in many different ways. But definitely, if you are, truly committed to teaching Pilates or like I said, anything else. Like you really should want to have a real sense of inclusion in your classes, your workshops, whatever you're doing.
Well, I love this. And I love this bigger picture that we're looking at for Pilates, that because even when I first started doing Pilates, it was very much like Pilates is for dancers. And, I'm not graceful, I'm not coordinated. How am I going to do that? And there are a lot of beautiful, graceful people. I found that the more you do Pilates, you also do get a little bit more graceful as well. You get a little bit more in control of what's happening in your body. But the fact that, you can do it at any age and with any background, whether it's a sports background, whether it's a sitting professionally as a lawyer for 50 years background, like we got you.
Yeah, I'm just happy that the Pilates community or industry is making this turn. I think it's, long overdue. And I just don't think it could be a better time for it. So I'm just really pleased to be a part of this turn because it's happening. So look out, everyone who's, not up for this, non-homogenous, inclusive new Pilates, but this is where, this is where it is. And I really hope that people are more open as far as teaching a different variety of students, as far as including, more students. I really hope that the old heads, in the community are really going to be more open.
I do think that the Pilates community benefits from what's happening right now. And I know that change is difficult for people who don't want to change, but it's important. And this is definitely the direction that I think we want to be going in as well.
I couldn't agree more.
Can you tell me, is there anything else that you're working on? Any projects in the pipeline or any other adventures you'd like to share about?
Sure. So I'm going to Greece. I'm going to Santorini for a retreat in October. Yes, right. The world is open finally. And so I'll be there for 5 days. And we opened 2 slots because we had a real big demand. It's still a small group. It's less than 15 people will be on the retreat. So that's my latest project that's coming up pretty rapidly. I'm really excited about that. I'm also doing a manual for my Chair Fit program, which was really spawned by my seniors class that I taught at the Y. I taught a seniors Pilates class, and my students simply couldn't get down to the mat. So I created a program for, in the chair that is inspired by Pilates. So that'll be my next next writing project to complete my Chair Fit manual, which will hopefully in turn be a certifiable, class. I don't know if that's the real word. Certifiable. That sounds like I just went mad. Not certifiable, but
for certification, we can say.
Yeah, for certification. Yeah. So those are my immediate projects, and there'll be a book tour in Atlanta over the summer. Hopefully that'll turn into, a book tour over the Southeast and the US, and hopefully even, bigger than that. So those are
yeah, come to Chicago.
I know, I would love to. I love that. I love Chicago. So that's what's on the horizon right now. Just retreat and book tour for Pilates for everyone, and working on my next manual.
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, all of the amazing things that are happening, I can say that you definitely deserve them. You have been working so hard on all of these projects. And the way it's amazing, because the way you share it, you're like, oh, writing a book and a manual and all these things. I'm going to Greece. But I know that there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that gets you to this place. And I'm so glad that you're reaping all of these incredible just opportunities and adventures. Your book looks absolutely fantastic. I'm going to link to the Amazon. Is that the best place to get it?
Yes, definitely. Yes. Pre-orders are going now.
Yeah. Yes. And I think I saw, are you also a bestseller before your book came out?
I am actually. Yes.
See, I got to hype you up because I know these things about you and you are not sharing them.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm not the best self-promoter.
But no, that's absolutely wonderful. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see it in the paper, in the flesh.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you so much. I will definitely, I have a series that is leading up to I have an IGTV series leading up to the launch of the book, which I've never done an IGTV series before. I know. What? I know. I never really understood the whole live thing. I was like, huh? But now I get it. So I'll be doing a series, and one of the guests will be one of the models from the book. And I have a couple other amazing Instagram folks that I know that are going to be a part of the series that's really showing that Pilates is for everyone. And so that'll be coming up next week. So that's something else I'm doing. I forgot about that. So yeah, so stay tuned for that.
Well, that is absolutely incredible. I am so excited for you, and I can't wait to get my hands on the book. So thank you so much, Micki, for your time, for coming on.
Thanks so much, Olivia.
Thanks for listening to this week's chapter of Pilates Teacher's Manual, your guide to becoming a great Pilates teacher. Check out the podcast Instagram at Pilates Teacher's Manual, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. For more Pilates goodness, check out my other podcast, Pilates Student's Manual, available everywhere you listen to podcasts. The adventure continues. Until next time.